Morning. We're going to be in Numbers chapter 10. I was looking at it this morning, and I don't think we're going to get through all of this today, but we'll give it a shot. I doubt it, though. That's okay. You know, I guess that's the nice thing about just working straight through books and stuff like that. You just come to the end of the time and you just pick up next week where you leave off. The book of Numbers, chapter 10. I'm going to at least try to get through chapter 14. Let's go ahead and pray, and we'll get started this morning. Father, thank you for your goodness to us, and just thank you for safety coming this morning and bringing us together to fellowship, to study your word together. Lord, I pray that you help us to be faithful and diligent students of your word. Help us to get a better grasp of what's taking place in your word and some of these patterns. And Lord, I pray that you'd just help us to be faithful to you. Please bless our time together. Help us be attentive. In Jesus' name, amen. So the first couple lessons, I guess, going through the book of Numbers so far, we saw how Israel is now at the base of Mount Sinai. They've been camped there for about 3 months or so. Actually, no, I take that back. They've been there for 11 months. 13 months total they've been out of Egypt. 3 months kind of wandering around a little bit till they got to Mount Sinai. 11 months they've been at Mount Sinai. So I guess that'd be 14 months? Yeah. You know, I did not do good in math in school. It was, well, once I figured it out, I had it, and then as soon as I stopped doing it, I forgot it all. So math is not my thing. So 14 months, approximately, they have been out of Egypt. 11 months now they've been at the base of Mount Sinai, camped out. They've received God's law. God's been trying to organize them into a nation. And what we saw in the first 9 chapters, essentially, is that God has taken a numbering of the children of Israel, but not of everybody. He's kind of taken a census of those who are 20 years and older, those who were able to go to war. And so he's established that number of soldiers for the nation. He's established the order in which they are going to be dispersed around the tabernacle, kind of as a protection of God's holiness and his holy place. And he's established the marching orders and the order in which they're to march. And he's kind of given a standard by which Israel is to present themselves before the Lord. They're to be a holy and separate people. But now where we're picking up here, from chapter 10, verse 11 on through the rest of the book, is now we're going to get into the wanderings of Israel for 40 years. Where we're at specifically here, in 10 through 14, you have Israel that is going to be marched to the border of Kadesh Barnea, to the southern border of Israel, the land of Israel, the land that God has promised to them, and they're going to fail to go into the land because they don't believe God. So this is where we're at. So let's go to chapter 10, down to verse number 11. Came to pass in the 20th day of the second month in the second year that the cloud was taken up from off the tabernacle of the testimony, and the children of Israel took their journeys out of the wilderness of Sinai, and the cloud rested in the wilderness of Paran. And they first took their journey according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So notice here in your notes, this chapter records the travel of the nation of Israel from the base of Mount Sinai to the borders of Kadesh Barnea. But between chapters 10 and 11, something happens. A transition takes place in the heart of Israel. Because when they come out of Egypt, man, they're gung-ho until they get to the Red Sea. And then they're distraught. then their faith begins to wane really fast. But then they're all for the Lord again. And they're on again, off again, on again, off again. But in the first chapters here, Israel is faithful and obedient. But what happens now between chapters 10 and 11, when we transition over to chapter 11, we find that Israel is no longer obedient and faithful, but now they're disobedient, unbelieving, and rebellious. That's what's going to take place here. Now you remember when we looked at Exodus, God, in order to deliver Israel from Egypt, God sends 10 plagues upon the nation of Egypt because of the hardness of their heart and because of their unbelief and rebellion against God. Now what God's going to do here in these chapters is Israel finds themselves in the exact same heart condition. They are hard-hearted, rebellious, and unbelieving. And so God is going to send 10 plagues upon Israel to chastise them for that disobedience. And so notice here in your notes, it's worth noting that in the second line here of this paragraph, God issues 10 plagues, that's your blank there, 10 plagues upon the nation of Israel for their hardness of heart and their unbelief. And so once we get to chapter 11, this is where we see this begin. So let's look at this first plague here, verse number 1. And when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it, and his anger was kindled. And notice this, and the fire of the Lord burnt among them and consumed them that were in the uttermost parts of the camp. So now they're complaining again. We don't like being out here in the desert. We don't like this wandering around. This is hard. We're not like that. We give Israel a hard time, but we forget that we are just like Israel sometimes. And so God sends fire into the camp as a plague against these people. So that's your first plague there. Fire for complaining. Now this goes back, God's done this before to an extent. You remember back in Leviticus, God has the tabernacle set up. He has the priests ordered and structured, and they've been instructed how to make the sacrifices, what they're supposed to do. The only thing God has not instructed them on yet is how to get the fire for the altar. And so Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, they decide, well, we'll just make the fire ourselves. And so the Bible says there in Leviticus chapter 10 that they offered strange fire before the Lord. And so from out of the tabernacle, fire came out and consumed Nadab and Abihu. Because it was God's idea was that he was going to start the fire under the altar, and then they were to just keep it burning. But they went outside of God's parameters. But here, God gives a plague of fire for complaining. Now notice here the second plague. Let's drop down to verse number 4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. Now this lusting, they're desiring meat to eat. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers. Wayne likes cucumbers, right? Wayne understands the temptation here to complain. If you're without cucumber, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. Man, we remember all that food. We're not getting that out in the wilderness. I mean, forget the fact that God has been providing for them for a year, giving them bread from heaven on a daily basis. We don't like it. We want some meat. We're not like that. Verse 10. Then Moses heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly. Moses also was displeased. Okay, drop down to verse number 19. You shall not eat. So God says, I'm going to send quail to you. I'm going to send quail. Okay, you're complaining, you want meat? Fine, I'll give you meat. I'm going to send some quail into the camp. And I'm going to send you a lot of it. I'm going to send you a ridiculous amount. So verse 19, he says, you shall not eat 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, neither 10 days, nor 20, but even a whole month, until it come out of your nostrils and it be loathsome unto you. I'm going to give you so much, by the time you're done, you're going to be sick and tired of all this meat. Wow. And boy, he says a lot. I mean, so you figure you have the children of Israel camped out around the tabernacle. And you have about 2 million people, so whatever amount of space that's going to take out around the tabernacle. Watch how much he actually sends. He says here, middle of verse 20, because that ye have despised the Lord which is among you, and have wept before him, saying, why came we forth out of Egypt? Now, drop down verse number 31. And there went forth a wind from the Lord, and brought quails from the sea, and let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, as it were about 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. And the people stood up all that day, and all that night, and all the next day. And they gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 omers, and they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. Now, so how much is this? So you figure Israel is going to take up quite a bit of space as far as they're camping out, because you got 2 million people. That's a city. That's a small. Actually, that's not a small city at all. That's a really good sized city. So we're talking what is that, about the size of Detroit? Grand Rapids? So you got this traveling camp, so you figure there's something the size of Grand Rapids. So not only is that filled up, but a day's journey, that's upwards of 24 to 30 miles. So that far outside of the camp, all the way around, about 30 miles, 3 foot deep of quails. That's a lot. Now, I know it probably takes more than one quail. It's not exactly a chicken that you're putting out there. But that's a lot of birds. And that sky must have just turned pitch black with all these birds that are coming in, that the Lord's bringing in. Now, here's a couple things. What does God say regarding an animal that dies of itself? That it's not killed and the blood's not let. What does he say about it? Don't eat it. It's unclean. You're not supposed to eat it. Now, these quail that are coming in, they all die as they're coming over the camp and fall to the ground. That's what's happening. So it's just quail. It's raining quail is what's going on here. 3 feet of it for over 30 miles. Now watch what it says. And then it says, the people gathered it, verse 32. The one that gathered least gathered 10 omers. So an omer is a bushel. So what is that? 25 gallons? 30 gallons? Something like that. Anyway, I think this omer equals out to be about this 10 omers equals out to be about 500 gallons worth is what this equals out to be. So each person gets a lot, and that's the person that took the least. Now watch verse 33 here. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth. So they didn't even stop to cook it. And they're just raving mad, grabbing this stuff and eating it. While it was between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. So these people are just grabbing these quails off the ground, starting to eat it, and before they even get it chewed up, God's anger comes against them, and people begin to die and get sick. So notice here, plague number 2 is sickness. Number 2, sickness. For complaining about food. Now I think it's interesting. Keep your place here. Go over to Psalm 106. Psalm 106. This is regarding Israel's complaining. Sometimes we think, well, if I just beg God enough and God finally lets me do it, then that must mean He approves of it. That He's okay. That's not necessarily the case. Look here, Psalm 106, verse, let's back up here, verse 12. Then believed they His words, they sang His praise, they soon forgat His works, they waited not for His counsel, but lusted exceedingly in the wilderness, and tempted God in the desert, and He gave them their request, but sent leanness into their souls. He filled them up because they complained about it. but then he sent leanness to their soul. It wasn't good for them when they got it. You know, sometimes God may grant a foolish desire, full well knowing that it's foolish, but because we just keep on, and we keep on, and we keep insisting, and we keep insisting, and we keep insisting, I'm going to do it anyways. God says, okay, fine. This is what you call natural consequences, right? You know, we do this with our kids, right? I've got at least one of them that the only way he learns anything is through natural consequences. And, you know, I don't want you to use that hammer. Doesn't matter how many times, it doesn't matter in what way you try to enforce that. He's just going to grab it. And then he smashes his finger and comes crying and complaining. Well, I'm sorry that happened, but this is exactly the reason I told you. Don't use that hammer. I don't want you climbing in that tree. And then they fall and almost break something. And it's like, I told you. I'm sorry, but you're not going to get much sympathy from me because I told you. This is exactly why I told you. Don't do this. I'm such a compassionate father. But number 3 here, the plague of leprosy for rebellion and jealousy. All that to say, God does the exact same thing with us. If we insist that we're going to have our own way, and just because he allows us to have our own way doesn't mean he approves of it. It just means, okay, fine, I'm going to let you learn the hard way. Sometimes people just have to go through the school of hard knocks, and God is more than willing to allow us to do that. It's just the way it is. Look at chapter 12 here, verse 1 and 2. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. So this obviously was something that, I wonder what Moses thought when he was writing this down. Now, it's hard to know exactly if this is his first wife, Zipporah, or if this is a different wife that he had. Because you remember, Moses was in his 40s when he met Zipporah. You know, and then he was 80 when he went back to Egypt, and Zipporah went with him. So how old was Zipporah? I don't know. Zipporah very well may have been 80-some years old. So it's possible that Zipporah, his first wife, died, and now he has married a second woman who came out maybe with Israel when they came out of Egypt or something like that. We don't know exactly. It could be a reference to Zipporah, maybe the Midianites, because the Midianites were a nomadic tribe, so maybe some of them were from Ethiopia and had migrated over to Midian. But it's hard to know exactly some of that. So whether it's the same woman or a different woman, I don't know. But obviously, this is an issue because twice it mentions the fact they were upset because he married an Ethiopian woman. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. So obviously, the people thought this was a no-no. And they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. That is such a big thing. People can complain, and we complain, don't we? And we'll sometimes get alone with somebody, and we'll make sure nobody else is listening, and we'll complain about something or somebody. And we think, man, you know, because you would never say it in front of that person. And the reason you do it alone is because you know you shouldn't do it. But it's important to remember, the Lord hears it. The Lord hears it. And the Lord heard this. They're kind of conspiring against Moses, their leader. Notice down to verse number 9. What happens? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. And behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. So leprosy comes, a plague comes into the camp because of their rebellion and jealousy. They're complaining against the leader. Notice plague number 4, sickness for unbelief. Sickness for unbelief. Chapter 13, down to verse number 31. Now we're going to come back and go over chapter 13 in just a minute, but just to get this out of the way here. Verse 31, but the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. So what's going on here? They're brought up to the border of Kadesh Barnea, and they decide, you know what, I think we need to have a business meeting, and we need to send some deacons. We need to send 12 men over into the land to spy it out for us. And so they go for 40 days, they come back, and they say, man, there are some giants over there. There's some big people. And those cities are so big. Man, the fruit is great. It's fruitful and plenteous. And it took 2 of us to carry 1 cluster of grapes. That's pretty impressive. Now, I don't know if that means they were big grapes or if it was just a great big cluster. But it took 2 of us to carry it. But man, those giants, we can't handle it. And so the people said, oh no, we can't go. Oh no, it's so sad. Why did God bring us out here in the wilderness to kill us? And then, so chapter 14 here, notice verse 12. This is God's response. I will smite them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and will make of thee, talking to Moses, a greater nation and mightier than they. So, he sends sickness for unbelief. So here we are, chapter 13, go back to the beginning. Chapter 13 finds Israel on the border of Kadesh Barnea, where their faith, or really their lack of it, is going to be put to the test. God's testing Israel. Notice chapter 13, verse 1. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, send thou men that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses, by the commandment of the Lord, sent them from the wilderness of Paran, all those men that were heads of the children of Israel. So now, here it's saying, God says send them. Now remember, we just talked about this. Sometimes God gives us the desires of our heart, even though it's not what He desires, even though He is not approving of it. And this is a case just like that. I'll show you. So notice here, in your notes, this act of sending 12 spies into the land was in fact an act of unbelief on the part of the nation. It's an act of unbelief on the part of the nation. So keep your place here. Go over to chapter 32. Numbers 32. And we see that by their response, by their responses here, because notice for 32 verse 7, wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them. Thus did your fathers when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. So again, God's saying, look, I sent them into the land, and the report they brought back discouraged them even more from going in. But go over to chapter 1 of Deuteronomy. Go over a few pages, Deuteronomy chapter 1. And here, Moses is speaking to the children of Israel. And he's telling them what he has done. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 22, he says, ye came near unto me, that is, unto Moses, every one of you, and said, we will send men before us, and they shall search out the land, and bring us word again by what way we must go up, and into what cities we shall come. Now let me ask you this. They send the men in to see what the people of the land are like, what the cities are like, what the land layout itself is. Does any of that matter? Does it matter what the people of the land are like? What had God already told them about the land and they're going into it? What had God already promised them long before this? It's theirs. He says, I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to go with you. You're not even going to have to fight. I'll fight the battles for you. I'll drive the people out. So it doesn't matter what the people are like, how big or small they are, how many there are, how powerful they are, what their cities are like. God has already promised. So by them wanting to send people over there, what are they saying? Well, we need to just see. Is God really going to be able to do this? And so notice what he says here, verse 23. And the saying pleased me well. That's Moses saying that. The saying pleased me. You guys came to me wanting to send people. Hey, that's a good idea. That makes sense. And so I took 12 men of you, one of a tribe, and they turned and went to the mountain and came unto the valley Eshcol and searched it out. So, this was the people's idea. We want to know what the people are like, what we're up against. Moses says, hey, that's not a bad idea. And God says, okay, fine. Go ahead. Send them. Now notice here, chapter 13. So we're back to chapter 13 of Numbers. And so verses 4 down through verse 17 lay out for us the people who are going to be sent. Verse 17, Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, get you up this way, southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many. So God says, go ahead, go look. And what the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds. Now, God's going to drive the people out, so what does that mean about the land and the cities and the strongholds? It's going to belong to Israel. So God's basically saying, go ahead. Go look. Remember, I promised these to you. Go look at it. Go ahead. But they get the way wrong idea about what they see when they get there. And what the land is, verse 20. Whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not. And be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was at the time of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men came to Hamath. And they ascended by the south and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Shishai, and Telmai, notice, the children of Anak were. So how many of the children of Anak are there that are listed? 3. 3. How many of the children of Israel are there? Millions. And of the men that are going to war, you're talking hundreds of thousands. It's a pretty good-sized army. And you know what scares them? 3 sons of Anak. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. Verse 23. And they came unto the brook Eshcol and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between 2 upon a staff. And they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. The place was called the brook Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they returned from searching the land after 40 days. Notice verse 26. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran, to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities be walled and very great. Moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. Remember, it only lists 3 of them. Only 3. The Amalekites dwelt in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against this people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it, are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Now that's really interesting, because they say, so we were in their sight. These are spies that went. Now, what is the goal of a spy? Get information, But are they going to be found out? Is their goal to go in there and say, hey, we're here, we're just coming to take... No, their goal is to not be seen at all. So how in the world would they know how the giants perceive them? Now, the same people are in the land, essentially 40 years later, and remember Jericho, Rahab lets the spies know, we're scared to death of you. We remember what you did in Egypt. So these men go over and they see, okay, there's the sons of Anak. They're pretty big guys. And then the Amorites, they themselves were pretty tall people. So, I mean, even if they were as tall as Shaq, now that would give an advantage, obviously. But their perception was based upon how they saw themselves in the sight of these people. Not at all what God said. And it clouded their judgment of this whole thing. God had already promised, I'm going to wipe this. I'm going to take these people out. I'll drive them out. You don't even have to fight. But then they go and they say, man, these people are so big. And we're like grasshoppers in their sight. Now, what does he mean by grasshoppers? We have it there in the thing. So, in the blue thing. So, there were some pretty tall people there. Og, the king of Bashan, that we find out later, his bed was 16 feet long. Now, the reason you'd have a bed that long is because you're probably close to needing that long of a bed. So, he was probably 14, 15 foot tall. That's pretty good size. They don't make them like they used to. But now when they say we're like grasshoppers, is that supposed to be a literal comparison? You know, if you take the ratio of a grasshopper, what is that, like an inch, to a person, you know, you figure the average height of a person, what is that, like 5'6", 5'8", something like that. And then you say, okay, so what is that, 65 inches? So if you take that ratio to one person and say, okay, this is the ratio, so does that mean that these people were 300 feet tall? Not at all. God uses in Isaiah chapter 40, God makes the comparison. Earth is my footstool and all the inhabitants are like grasshoppers. So does that mean God's only like 300 foot tall? No, that's not big enough for the description that he gives of himself. What's he saying? He says, I am more powerful than you. Just like grasshoppers, I can drive you out of a field. Just like grasshoppers, I can squash you like bugs. That's the point. And so Israel now is saying, oh man, we're just like grasshoppers. They are so strong. They are so powerful. And what have they forgotten? That God, the one who has delivered them from Egypt, who showed his mighty power and has provided for them this whole time, he is able to fight this battle and to deliver the land into their hands. But they refuse to believe. They refuse to believe God. And as a result, and we'll look at it next week, God's going to send them back into the wilderness. Okay, fine. I think you need to take another trip around Mount Sinai for a little while. You're just going to wander around for 40 years, and none of you, except for Joshua and Caleb, are going to get to go in and see this land. It's going to be your children. Well, thank you for this day that you've given to us. Thank you for this time. Pray that you bless it and help us, Lord, to just remember how powerful you are and that you can overcome every obstacle in our life if we would trust you. And that's what you want from us. Please bless now as we get ready for the next hour. In Jesus' name, amen.